Hello YouTube and fellow Star Wars collectors! On this episode of Toys Are the Way, we will be taking a look at the Star Wars Vintage Collection Return of the Jedi Jabba the Hutt Action Playset. If you're new to the channel or a fan of Star Wars collecting, be sure to smash a like on this video, remember to subscribe, ring that bell for notifications, or even become a channel member, which helps produce these videos, dioramas, tutorials, and much more. Welcome back everyone. As you can see, I finally have the Jabba the Hutt action playset added to the collection room. This was delivered yesterday by Hasbro Pulse, and I'm pretty happy to have it. I definitely forgot all about this release because we pre-ordered this thing so long ago. About a year, and since that time we've gotten so many other figures into our collections. Additionally, we also got the throne room, which was based off the Book of Boba Fett, but a lot of us are using it for our Return of the Jedi displays. And yeah, it would have been nice if they got this out a little sooner into our collection rooms, maybe during the actual 40th anniversary of Return of the Jedi, but regardless, I'm pretty happy to have it. This Jabba is going to be, a nice addition to the collection. I was pretty happy with the one that I currently have, and this is a repack of the one from the 3.75 Black Series line, which was later included in the HasLab Sail Barge, but I'm happy to have this version added to my collection, and we will compare it to the previous one from the Shadows of the Dark Side line. And yeah, it's nice to finally see 8D8 and a Salacious B Crumb. Those are new figures. They're not as articulated as some of our mainline releases, but still cool to finally get them. But with all that being said, let's take a closer look at the figures and packaging. Taking a look at the box, we have our classic vintage style packaging with the Star Wars and Return of the Jedi logo in the top left corner, followed by Jabba the Hutt action playset. Naturally, we have the figures that are included in this set, along with some other 1/18 scale characters that interact with this world building piece, followed by the Kenner logo in the bottom right corner. Additionally, we have some other images of the carded figures that are included in this set, and I will say that overall this box looks absolutely fantastic. Taking a look at the top of the box, we have the Star Wars and Return of the Jedi logo once again, followed by Jabba the Hutt action playset. Additionally, we have some fantastic toy photography images utilizing this set combined with that Book of Boba Fett throne room to show you how you can recreate these worlds in your collection room. Taking a look at the side of the box, we have additional branding followed by images of Jabba having a snack and also getting his smoke on. And then lastly, the back of the box has a nice image once again showing you how you can recreate these worlds and add them to your collection room. This is absolutely why the vintage collection and 1/18 scale will forever be the world building scale. This is absolutely what it's all about. Taking a look at the inside of the packaging, we have two cardboard trays that slide out and have all of the contents nicely packed away. Jabba the Hutt and the accessories are kept in a plastic bag, and the two carded figures are nicely secured in a well-designed cardboard tray. Taking a look at Jabba the Hutt and all the accessories out of the packaging, we have some pretty nice quality collector grade stuff here, if I do say so myself. So the first thing I want to talk about is the pillows, which are made of a nice felt, and I kind of really appreciate these. The Shadows of the Dark Side one came with sculpted plastic versions, which were, pretty good, but it's nice to get a variety of texture added to this. Most of our collectibles are made of plastic, so, getting, a different texture in there, soft goods, really adds to your photography, but also just shelf display in general. And we got some pretty nice muted colors here that just look really nice in my opinion. Even this one is like, it's got two colors, a top and a bottom. So yeah, pretty nice stuff here, and I think that's pretty quality material. And then moving on, we have the second soft goods addition to this set, which is something we saw with the Book of Boba Fett throne room release, and it's these like animal skins that are made of a bit more of a silky material, but once again adds a nice texture to your diorama. And yeah, I think these are always pretty neat additions to get. Soft goods is always cool. Then moving on, we have these really small accessories, the cups, which we also saw with that throne room set. They're pretty similar. We're getting 3 here, another plate of like food, and then the little frog, which we will put into the like hookah device type thing. So really tiny stuff. Don't want to take them out right yet until I get everything set up. And then moving on, we have the little smoking hookah device with the bowl. This is really neat. It's got some nice detail and sculpting to it. The gold metallic color looks pretty good for the most part. And yeah, the hose has got a nice flexibility to it, so you shouldn't have any problems posing this. And then of course the bowl comes off like that, and you actually interact with this piece here, which has some really nice sculpting on it. At first glance, it's definitely smaller than the other one from the Shadows of the Dark Side. It's got some pretty decent sculpting right there for the most part. No real weathering or any coloring added to it, but that doesn't really bother me. And then you take this bowl, simply put it in there. You could put the frog, and then just set everything up like that. So pretty neat, looks pretty good, does what it needs to do. And then of course we have the dais itself, which I personally kind of like the one from the Book of Boba Fett more. It just looked a little bit more weathered in my opinion. It had a little bit of a patina on these little like creature sculptures, and yeah, I don't know. Something about it looked a little better to me. Now this one is the lighter stone color, which is probably more accurate to Return of the Jedi and similar to the Shadows of the Dark Side one, so it's kind of up to you what you want to use. I will definitely use this for the Jabba version that I'm going to display, but yeah, nothing really too different here. It's got a little bit of like paint weathering here, some type of paint application done with like a airbrush, so it's got a little bit of that like dusty like weathering look to it, so that looks pretty good. I personally think it could look a little bit dirtier, like this kind of like weathering here where it really gets into the cracks is kind of nice, and they did that, you know, for the most part on some of these like forward facing pieces, but I think it could have used a little bit more. And then on the bottom we have nothing really, just like the last one, just the mechanics, so you don't really need to weather that up unless you're very particular. So pretty cool stuff. And then taking a quick look at Jabba himself. I've never had this Jabba yet. I've only had the other one from the Shadows of the Dark Side. He's definitely smaller. We'll be taking a look at both of them in a second, but yeah, he's pretty cool for the most part. He's, you know, just Jabba. I will say that the one thing I don't like is, you know, you can't even move his tail. You can do that on the other one because it's a softer plastic. This is still soft, but for the most part just hard and kind of sculpted in that position. He does have, you know, articulation here. He's got a swivel. His arms are, you know, ball jointed. He's got an elbow. He's got a wrist that's even got a hinge, so that's pretty cool. You can see the detail there in terms of like his tattoo, and they've done a decent job here in terms of, you know, getting some nice paint applications into there, all those like, you know, little skin textures, and just making that come to life. Got a little bit of like a, I don't know, a highlight here, which looks okay for the most part. Kind of looks a little odd at a distance. It looks like he's got like a sunspot or like a light is shining onto his stomach, which is a little odd. I will say that this paint application here is just a little too heavy. I've seen some people in the community just not fond of that, and I think, you know, they definitely went a little too hard there. That needed to be dulled down a bit. I will probably dry brush it away or use some alcohol to, you know, dilute it a little bit and make it less severe because it doesn't look that great. And then his eyes look phenomenal. I think they've done a great job there. That is one thing I think that sets this one apart from the other one. And yeah, that's pretty much Jabba at a, you know, quick glance, but for the most part he will do what he needs to do and just sit there. Taking a look at the card backs, we have our classic vintage style packaging with 8D8 on a nice blue name pill color, with the Star Wars and Return of the Jedi logo placed nicely up top. We have a fantastic image of this torture droid doing what he does best in Jabba's palace, with the Kenner logo placed down below. And all in all, everything is looking really fantastic here, and we have a nice new figure added to the vintage collection, looking good on that bubble. On the back, he is VC 325 in the line, 8D8, and we have a small description of the character, followed by the Vintage Collection logo and additional images of this card and figure. So I'm very happy to finally have 8D8 added to the Vintage Collection, and we're checking off another original 96 character, and I really look forward to adding this one to my Return of the Jedi carded lineup. Taking a look at 8D8 out of the packaging, I think Hasbro has done a really nice job sculpting this figure. Aesthetically, he looks remarkable. And during the original announcement, I was a bit perturbed in terms of his articulation, but taking a closer look at him, he's not too bad. So let's start with the legs. He's got a swivel going on there at the hips, which makes sense for a droid. He's got nothing going on here because, you know, in terms of his design, there's no bends there going on. And then looking at the ankles, he does have a hinge, which is pretty good. And it allows you to kind of put him in these like walking stances, which is kind of nice. So for the most part, his lower leg articulation does what it needs to do for a droid. Moving on up, he's got a swivel at the waist, which is pretty good. And then on his head, he's got, you know, some pretty good range of motion there. He can tilt side to side, move around. So you got good stuff going on there. And then we have the arms, which is probably everyone's biggest gripe. He's only got a swivel going on. He's got no bend at the elbow, and his hands do nothing at the wrist. So that's a bit unfortunate, but, you know, I see why they didn't do it. Looking at his design here, It's just a very thin arm, and I don't see where they could have put a hinge at all and to give him that articulation. Taking a look at IG-11, which is one of my favorite figures they've ever done, and kind of something I was thinking about when they originally announced this character. I was like, why couldn't they give him arms compared to, IG-11? And taking a look at IG-11, he's just a bigger figure in general, and his arms are thicker and just like allow for a hinge there due to his design. So I kind of understand why you did not do it now, Hasbro. It's definitely unfortunate, but that's just something we have to deal with here. Taking a closer look at everything else, he's got really good sculpting, got a little bit of paint applications on the back. He could maybe be a tad dirtier, but I could always weather this up if I really want. But yeah, for the most part, he looks pretty good, and he's a nice addition to my collection. I did not have any versions of 8D8 added to my collection, which I needed to pick up because I wanted the torture device, but I'm happy to have this one added now. Moving right along, we have the smallest card back known to the vintage collection, and it is the Salacious B Crumb mini card, an infamous exclusive from back in the day that haunted many a carded collector. We have the Star Wars and Return of the Jedi logo placed nicely up top, followed by Salacious B Crumb on a bright green nameplate color. We have a nice image of the character in Jabba's palace, looking pretty good with that Kenner logo down below, and then we have a newly tooled version of this character coming to the vintage collection on the smallest bubble ever. Just look at that thing. It is like the size of a sauce container from like some kind of food establishment, and it just looks so funny, but very cool stuff here. On the back, he is VC66A, and we have the Vintage Collection logo, followed by Disney and Hasbro, but no additional images of the card or figure, or any small description about the character. Instead, most of the card is taken up by the warning label and other information that needs to be included. So it's nice that Hasbro gave us the option with VC66A and this release to get this mini card into our collections. I'm personally very happy to have it, but let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. How do you feel about the numbering? And additionally, do you have this mini card from the original release already added to your collection? Taking a look at Salacious B Crumb out of the packaging, this figure is absolutely tiny. What a small accessory slash figure. But the cool thing about him is he actually has articulation, which is pretty surprising for something at this scale. So every one of his limbs is able to be articulated and has a swivel, which is pretty cool and kind of impressive. The arms are a little weird to work, but they do have a peg that you're able to, make them go 360 degrees around. So that is nice to see that level of articulation there. And then he can cross his legs, which is pretty good. You can't really do a standing pose, unfortunately, because of just like he doesn't have knees and no hinges or anything at his ankles. So it's kind of like he's like flying through the air or jumping or something like that. But for the most part, you're just going to need him to sit in Jabba's palace. So pretty good. He also has a swivel at the waist, so that's nice to get extra articulation there. And then his head is also on a swivel, so he can look around, which is pretty cool. And then his tail, of course, is able to rotate 360 degrees or be displayed however you would like it to look. So pretty good stuff there in my opinion. And then taking a look at the old version that came with the Jabba from the Shadows of the Dark Side, you can see that they're definitely very different. I keep, having trouble deciding which one I actually like more. I kind of think I do like the new one more, but every so often I'm just like, oh, I think I like that face more. I think I like this one. So it's kind of hard to say. Let me know how you feel about them in the comments down below. But yeah, the one thing I did want to point out is clearly they're size different. I think this one's more accurate, but also it has one more point of articulation than the old version. This one does not have a swivel at the waist. Everything else is pretty similar. So, if you're looking for pluses or minuses, this one is a little bit more articulated. But yeah, taking a closer look at him, he's got really nice sculpting on his face. The paint applications look pretty good, and yeah, I'm happy to have this version added to the collection. I think this would be a cool accessory to keep including in vintage collection releases, maybe as different little monkeys and stuff like that we've seen in Mando and whatever. So very happy to have this one. Taking a look at the vintage collection version seen on the left and comparing it to the old Shadows of the Dark Side version on the right, you can see there's some noticeable differences, mainly in the scaling of these two releases. Now, I personally as a whole think the vintage collection version looks much better and also looks a bit more true to scale. And the more I'm looking at it, the more I'm starting to like it. The only thing I still think I'm a little bit torn about is the Jabba sculpt in general. I still really do like this old version from the Shadows of the Dark Side, but in terms of the paint applications and just like the color in general, I think the new Vintage Collection version really stands out. A couple things that also stand out a lot more to me are just the dais in general. The creature sculptures look very nice, much more sized correctly with the dais itself. They have better detail and just overall look nice. Additionally, the hookah is, a bit more in scale with Jabba and also has a lot more detail to it. You're able to take that top off and just have the bowl and put the frog creature in there to recreate that scene. So that's really nice. And that's something you actually don't see on that old version. Additionally, just the paint applications on that smoking device just look better. I like that the hose itself is also a clear plastic. So yeah, that's really speaking to me a lot as well. Additionally, the pillows were pretty nice on the old one, sculpted plastic, but the soft goods really add another level to this collectible and just make it look better. And also it does more for my photography as, somebody who likes to set up scenes. So that's also very nice. And then, as a whole, I think Salacious B Crumb actually looks really, really good when everything's set up over here. And the other one, it looks a little bit gimmicky almost. I will say one thing that definitely sets the old set apart from the new one is the inclusion of Ula. That's a character that I'm not sure if we're ever going to see again, and I know many people need that for their Return of the Jedi displays. So that's something to also consider. If you don't have either of these releases, that's going to be one of the only ways to get an articulated Ula into your collection. But yeah, overall, very, very happy with the new Vintage Collection version. It's going to be a huge upgrade to my collection and display. And lastly, we just had to put this to the test in a diorama setting. Here we have Jabba the Hutt, Salacious B Crumb, and 88 fully set up with a bunch of different Jabba's denizens for my action figure photography. And I've got to say that this new adventure set is a nice addition to the line, and I appreciate it even more because we actually have the throne room to put everything together, not to mention a plethora of 1/18th Jabba's denizens. So very nice to see this world kind of fully built out, and it allows me to take a variety of photos but also just set up my own shelf display the way I would like it as a proper Return of the Jedi Jabba the Hutt's throne room. So very happy to have this. I think it's a great addition. But as always, I hope you've enjoyed this video and taking a look at this latest addition to the Vintage Collection, the Jabba the Hutt Adventure Set from Return of the Jedi. Feel free to let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And don't forget to drop a like on this video and subscribe if you're new to the channel. It really helps and is always greatly appreciated. Thanks everyone, and may the Force be with you.